back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast brought to you by Soonerscoop.com. We welcome in the entire gang. Josh dicked us over last week, but he is back once again this week, along with Eddie Radosevich and Bob Przbillo. I always say welcome in, and then everybody doesn't say shit. So, Josh, welcome back this week. Thank you for not blowing us off.
Well, yeah, I've heard some rumors that it was reported I was too drunk to podcast. Is there any truth to that?
I don't think that was rumor. That was just common sense.
We're still waiting on a urine analysis for that, but...
Well, I mean, it's been a week. I've probably dried out by now.
We didn't know. We were really confused by, I'll be at the pool, what it meant. You didn't really elaborate. That's when I think we knew. Yeah, I think that's when we knew that you were screwing with us, and
no, I really had.
Or you were too drunk to actually,
I really had planned to. We went to the JW Marriott in San Antonio, and
that was another thing we talked about, how secretive you are about where you go and what you do with your time.
Exactly. I don't
as if people are just going to be calling your room if they find out because you're so powerful.
Does that not happen to you guys? Is that just me? Oh, that's just me. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Well, I mean, fame's a bitch. I don't know what to tell you. But no, it was and for people that haven't been there, it's really kid driven. There's 12 pools. There's a lazy river. There's water slides. It's kind of like an amusement park with a hotel attached to it. So it's kind of a weird setup. And so literally we just woke up and would take the girls down to the pool, and we were the first one in the pool, I think 3 of the 4 days we were there. And so we would just sit around and kind of hang out, and they swam all day, and then we'd go up to the room. I'd let, depending on what day it was, Lainey would stay down there sometimes. Sometimes they'd come up and take a nap with me. So it was, they would take a nap. I was up in the room. So that was kind of what I had thought is I'll record it during nap time. And then I was I'm not going to just keep delaying it for these guys. And then I don't know when I'm going to be up here. I can say 1:30, but lunch may come late. And so I won't get up here till 2, and everybody's just going to end up pissed off. So I was I'll just call this.
It's a lot of words to say I got passed out. And I got blacked out.
I wish. You need a lot of alcohol to deal with that place, and I did not get enough for a quote-unquote vacation.
That's the place that they have the golf tournament down there, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got a really nice course down there, apparently. I didn't get to play it because, again, I was on pool duty. But
I'm pretty sure that they play I don't know if they might not anymore, but the last couple of years they played a tour event down there at the it's kind of like the Las Colinas, I guess, a little bit.
Well, should we just start off where my life became a living hell last week with the summit?
Oh, sure.
And the possibilities of the summit.
Carrie, do you just want to handle this segment? I mean, you can have it.
Do I want another 7-page thread where people are just yelling at me and I'm just fighting back tooth and nail? No, I mean, look. It came up last week. We looked into it more and more, and I don't know that anything has really changed from where we left it off after the initial wave of do your damn jobs ended. But, no, Caleb Williams, 5-star quarterback, had tried to start a movement where a bunch of recruits descended on Norman during a dead period to walk around campus, apparently, with masks on, as if it were some kind of poor man's Champ U barbecue. See, I can't help myself. I'm already shitting on it still.
You're already starting to go downhill.
So
I think it kind of got lost in translation that, because we kind of think that it's a little bit, I don't know, overzealous to think that it will actually happen. It doesn't mean that we weren't ever checking. I think that kind of got lost in the board.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of became how dare you shit on our dreams
I think it'd be awesome if it could happen. I just, as Josh has discussed in recent days, it seems like, there's a lot to come together. I had a lot of great ideas in high school that never materialized, and probably for the best, never came together.
The Sky Bridge you're still waiting for.
That's real, Bob.
So anyway, Caleb had talked to some recruits, and Kobe McKenzie was one of them, about doing something on August 21st where everybody comes into Norman, even people from far away. And my initial thought was, let's see about that. Just knowing what I know about how OU's compliance handles things, and how much value you could really get out of that. And I think it's a lot of different things. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on the idea. I've said for the entire time, yes, it could happen. They could do that. I just think people are out there living their lives in regular places, but like in Norman, Oklahoma, in terms of university life, and I saw this too. I noticed Rush is going online and all that stuff. Eddie, I don't know if you saw that. They're going to do
that's going to be a disaster. You're going to have to actually meet people and let them know, you're going to have to actually talk to people. You can't do it on looks and appearances, and that's the only way the Rush is supposed to go.
So, I mean, it's just, there's so many precautions that are going to be taken. I mean, trying to keep a college campus up and going without, it's just like in sports, kind of. It's like you can't have, this massive spread of the coronavirus, regardless of how deadly it may or may not be. They're still trying to keep the numbers down, and they're thinking about their faculty, and they have older people in the faculty that could be more, high risk than the students. But certainly, I saw a thing where Bruce Arians is going to wear a mask and a face shield during games this year to protect himself because he's considered high risk. But it's like the world is not going to be the same as what you think it was. I mean, even responses to that thread, people are like, oh, they'll just blend in with 25 to 30,000 people on campus. Like, there's not going to be 25 to 30,000 people on campus. It's just not going to be a normal life situation throughout August. So it's, even though it can happen, you can't have any, and I talked to Joe Castiglione about this, the coaches will not be able to have any in-person contact. They will not be able to allow them into the facilities. And, as things stand right now, until students check in and all that, you can't even get into a building on campus right now.
Yeah. And we've kind of seen what can happen. There's been some kids who have done this the right way with no shady dealings, where they are literally just in front of the stadium or by the gym or, just kind of hanging out, and that's all they can really do. I think the one question that I don't have the exact answer to is, can you FaceTime the entire way? I've heard very conflicting things on whether or not like Caleb Williams could FaceTime the staff and they could take them on a guided tour or talk with them or something of that nature. So that's something I'm really not too sure about. And the other thing that sounds pretty clear here, Josh, is that this won't be a huge group like perhaps some people first thought. As I talked to more commits and people of that nature, some of them actually, when I'm talking to them, that's the first they've heard of it. So that makes me think maybe temper your expectations to 5 or 10 compared to 20 to 30 people.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're looking at, Bob. And honestly, I think that's the smarter play. I mean, Caleb Williams is a high school kid trying to organize all of this and do all this on a campus he's not very familiar with. I think you're reaching, and you're really going to probably have diminishing returns if you tried to have 25 or 30 guys. I'd focus on 5, 10, a group, and a group that he knows well, we know he's trying to get a Mecca Ibuka. That's a guy he talks to a lot. Bryce Foster's a guy he talks to a lot. But Bryce Foster is a good example of what you're talking about. When I had talked to Bryce, I believe that was Saturday night maybe, he had no real, conversations with Williams about it. So I think everybody's assuming that this is why Eddie, Carrie, and Bob were a little skeptical last week was because there's a lot to do in this. And I know a month seems like a really long time, but it's really not. There's a lot to set up, and you're doing it with young high school kids, and they've got to set up travel, and there's all the rest of the chaos that is going on in the world. They can't get into campuses. Oklahoma really can't have any role in this. I mean, the second they get involved, they kind of nuke it. So they kind of have to just let it go as it's going to go. And so it's really hard to see this being a big event. Now, I think there's a way you could see 5, 6, 7 guys showing up, and maybe you get some ground out of that. But I think the bigger you try and make it, probably the less valuable it becomes.
Yeah, if you have 10, 15, 20 people show up and you have their family show up, there's going to be a few of them that, spend all day walking around campus not really knowing what they're looking at, or, what having all these questions about all this stuff. And eventually somebody's going to be like, we came all this way and the coaches can't even meet us. I mean, I know the NCAA says this and that, but they can't even find a way to meet us. Like, you got to think that there's going to be somebody disgruntled if you get a whole bunch of people in there.
I think it should also be noted, too, that, we're talking about a campus that you literally have to turn in a coronavirus negative test before you're even allowed to start taking classes.
Yeah, and there is a visitor form, but, I didn't get the sense that would be the case talking to Joe Castiglione. He basically said, look, if you're in the general public, you can go walk around campus. You just, unless you're wearing a mask, that's the only way people are going to stop you. But that doesn't mean that they can be a part of organizing anything. So, it doesn't sound like you have to. It doesn't sound like they think they're going to be able to stop just random people from coming onto campus if they wanted to.
And then how busy is that going to be, since that'll be move-in weekend too? That's sort of my other.
Well, move-in weekend sounds horrible because they won't let family members or parents go into the dorms. They're going to have people that help you unload your cars and take your stuff to the rooms that are all, I don't know, PPE'd up or something. But you're going to have all these family members standing around just doing nothing, which we all know that's a nightmare as it is in Norman that day.
I think anybody that has drove down there on move-in day knows it's a nightmare to begin with.
Oh.
I can't imagine the nightmare that it's going to be as kids, moving in and out of the dorms and stuff. And, as you said, Carrie, with all the restrictions that are in place, I don't want to be in Norman, Oklahoma that day. I can tell you that.
I'm probably the only one here. I moved in by myself my freshman year. I literally drove down in my own car, parked in the parking lot, and just moved my stuff. I had no family preamble or anything like that. I can't imagine. It would have sucked then. I was like, God, this looks awful. Just all the moms crying and little sisters and brothers running around everywhere. And then to know, it could be so much worse with all, mom can't get out of the car and everybody's in PPE stuff. That would just be just a shit show.
Yeah, I honestly don't ever remember my parents, other than when I was a freshman, being around any college campus I was on.
Trying to score dime bags with your parents all walking around by. It's just crazy.
So, it's something that we'll continue to monitor. We'll see how it plays out. Even, Kobe McKenzie's folks were like, we don't know if this is going to happen. This is something that we'll see what happens if it even develops, if we can make time for it. It's just a lot of stuff, I think, for families to deal with, knowing what they know. It'd be a totally different situation if, and I said this too, I wish the NCAA would do something where, if kids did want to kind of take an unofficial, that maybe they could designate a COVID safe zone where they could meet players. You don't have to let them in your facility, but maybe have some area where you could meet them, whether it was outside or, just some part of campus where, you could talk to recruits or something like that would be good. I I would think they could come up with a way to do that, but the way it is right now, I don't think Lincoln Riley has changed his thoughts, which is we don't want those, we don't want recruits in our facility. We're just trying to, they're spending so much money to keep their COVID numbers under control, and they're doing a great job. And hell, everybody seems to be doing a great job. Baylor just came out with 0 infections. Texas did last week. So, they are spending so much time, money, and effort into trying to play a season. I think everybody kind of feels like Lincoln does. Like there's just no sense in bringing recruits in that we don't know, and family members that we don't know they're going to bring something with them.
There's such a big question mark too about just, how it all trickles down even to the high school level. We're sitting here, basically a week out from high school starting here in Oklahoma, and you don't really know what's going to happen. Obviously the decision's been made in the DC area with Caleb Williams and his season. Got the update yesterday from Adam Friedman about that on the board, but it's truly great. Like what is going on within the state of Washington with Emeka and his high school season, even in Lubbock with Kobe McKenzie. So it's gonna. I don't know. It's just crazy to me that we are literally
Washington. Yeah, we know Washington, Virginia. They've already announced that they're moving to
Washington. Did.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
Virginia,
see that.
So if you're looking at Gilliam and people like that, they already know that if they're going to play, it would have to be during the spring.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that before. That doesn't sound like a really good idea for a graduating high school senior, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's like the pushing the college football back to the spring. Like nobody's going to play that's even borderline a draft guy. Like there would just be no reason to do it, to forget the toll it would take on your body to play the football season and then kick around in the fall and try and do it again in the NFL.
By the way, a little bit of breaking news here via Chad Simmons. 5-star offensive lineman Amarius Mims is eliminated Oklahoma and now has a top 5. So they were 6. And he's decided to push his commitment date to October 14th.
Focused on Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Georgia, and Tennessee.
Which really, Oklahoma was the only school outside of his geographic region. So
exactly. I think you can tell that OU was never really that serious of a contender as it was. So, and that's no fault of Oklahoma's. That kid's just not leaving the Southeast.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that can't be like, oh, that's Caleb Williams not being able to close again. That.
Are people saying that?
I'm saying that, Eddie. That's my next thing I'm harping on.
Damn.
You can't trust Caleb Williams' closing ability.
Terry Murdoch's next 7-page thread.
That's why the summit will never happen. I'm just kidding. That's not what I'm saying.
We're less than a month since his commitment, and I just think some fans really thought it meant like 6 or 8 kids were just gonna jump on board, and that was never gonna be the case. But I almost feel like the weight of expectation to what Williams needs to do to contribute to this class is something I've never seen before.
Yeah,
I guess in a way he's done it to himself, hasn't he? Just as far as the way that. Yeah. But at the same time, I do think though that, and everybody doesn't. I find myself getting into this a little bit every day. It seems like looking at stuff and trying to decipher if it's actual news or if that's news for people that aren't in the quote unquote recruiting world that pay attention to it every day. And I feel like a lot of people had high expectations that probably don't pay attention to the ins and outs of recruiting on the daily. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
I think it makes sense with quarterbacks and receivers, but outside of that, do we really have any evidence that big, 5-star quarterbacks equate, tons of offensive talent around him? To me, I've always felt like offensive linemen just kind of do their own thing. They're not really. I think they just love to play in a good program, but it's not like I don't look back and say, "Wow, Adrian Peterson brought all these linemen with him when he committed." Like it just
right, and that's why Caleb was considered to be so different, because he has been trying to get beyond the receivers. You always see quarterbacks get receivers. Heck, we saw it with Chris Robinson, with CeeDee Lamb, Charleston Rambo, go to Spencer Rattler with Theo East, Trajan Bridges.
Yeah.
Like, you always see it with receivers, but Caleb was branching out. He was getting the guys in his region. He was going offensive linemen, he was going defensive kids. And it's not like it hasn't worked. Tristan Lee's still in play. Calvin Gilliam is still in play. These are guys that are legitimately targets for OU to land for the 2021 class. But my thinking is that if they don't get them, people are going to say Caleb couldn't close the show.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what Bob said, though.
That's ridiculous pressure.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like because Caleb Williams committed to Oklahoma, the coaches were going to have to stop recruiting in it, and he was just going to do everything. I think there's people that thought that, though.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, no, Bob's not wrong. Like, I mean, it hasn't happened yet because it's not been any of the guys that – but, I mean, let's say OU – I mean, which is completely reasonable, doesn't get Gilliam, doesn't get Egbuka, doesn't get Tristan Lee. And I think Farouk, everybody thinks, is pretty well in the bag. But, I mean, you take those three, the big three that I think everyone kind of attaches to Caleb Williams, and OU doesn't get any of those guys.
And I think there are going to
be people that question him.
But, Josh, I think a lot of people tie Mario Williams to Caleb Williams.
And they should. Yeah. That's fair. But,
and I think
that goes forgotten.
Bryce Foster has become a Caleb guy, too, now, too.
Sure. But, like I said, it's not fair. It's absolutely ridiculous that that's the way people are going to look at it. But it is. I mean, that he's been so open about, I'm going to be an active recruiter. I've been involved with it. I mean, we know he's been recruiting, and now we can say it. I mean, he's been recruiting for OU for months. Forget about, once he committed. He'd been doing it for a long time and just kind of waited until he could have the moment to announce that he wanted to have. Bob, you said something earlier, and I kind of wanted to circle back to it. I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been more action over the last month. I really thought it would pick up after the 4th of July. Now, it seems like that the class is just going to kind of piece by piece kind of come in. Like, Oklahoma's moving in a good direction. I'm not worried that the class is like falling apart. Nothing dramatic about what I'm saying here. But I am a little surprised that there hasn't really been that groundswell moment when things have, you have seen a week where OU picks up 4 commitments or something like that. That doesn't seem that crazy to me, and it just hasn't come together.
Has that been has that been hamstrung by everything else that's going on in the world right now? I mean,
I think that's definitely some
I think
of it.
everything about recruiting has been hamstrung by it. I mean,
sure.
The fact that OU has done as well as they have with kids not even in their region, I mean, that's amazing. If you take a step back and you say, that they ever were doing this, like in the Bob Stoops era, like nothing like this happened. Like, of course, you haven't been through anything like this, but Lincoln Riley has literally got some of the biggest players from Florida and from, I don't know where you consider Caleb Williams originally to be from. I mean, Virginia, I guess.
Is that right? I thought.
Is he not DC? I figured. I just assume he went to the private school from somewhere else. I don't
probably. Know. I wouldn't pretend that I know his birthing background. That is not on my radar at this point.
But anyway, I mean, somebody from the DC area.
Sure.
I mean, what they've done, it shouldn't be overlooked. Like, it shouldn't be taken for granted. It's if you want OU to be a top 5 class right now without Lincoln Riley being able to really see a lot of kids in person or bring them in and let them kind of do their deal. I mean, it's amazing what they've been able to do so far.
OU's landed 5 guys. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm going to give you the floor here. I did not want to address this last week because you know a heck of a lot more about this situation, but we were coming up to August 1st to where we were maybe thinking about having to do another recruiting pod, Damond Harmon and Kendall Daniels. And this is one of those things where you think these pieces are coming together, but now when you kind of get the sense, that one of them isn't, just kind of take us through why it seems pretty set that Kendall Daniels is not going to be part of this class.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I mean, we were I got that news Monday morning, and guys, we were together on Sunday, and we weren't having a conversation about OU being out on Kendall Daniels, and it kind of happened real suddenly. And I want to be clear because I know I felt really bad about how that worked out, because I was like, I'm leaving town, and literally I was in the car, and Tiffany posted that message for me on the board because I was driving. I was like, you got to post it. I can't. It was too long. I couldn't do it. Yeah. Hey, we were being safe. Tiffany broke some news that day. And
well, we all know your text-to-speech sucks ass.
It is awful. It is awful. There's absolutely no question. Because generally when I'm trying to text you guys something, it's something I've got to say, and I say it real fast, and then my accent gets out of control, and it's just not good for anybody. But I want to be clear. I think some people just kind of assumed, oh, well, he told OU he wasn't coming, or, OU got – I don't think this was like one singular moment. And I don't think – and I don't think – I know he hadn't told Oklahoma he wasn't coming. Now, I do think A&M had made it an interesting race, and I don't think I would have said that even a few weeks before. It just felt like A&M kind of kept hanging around, and really – it seemed like maybe the coach he had the best relationship with is the staff guy, Coach Ishmael, I believe is his name, at Texas A&M, and he's not a full-time guy. He's just a analyst type. So I think that was a big part of it. But again, people thinking like Oklahoma just cut loose of him before he could cut them. That's not what happened. Like I think this had been a concern that there had been some problems with communication. There had been some problems just getting on the same page about things. And I think Oklahoma just wondered if that was going to be something that would continue on if they did land him while he was in school. And is that good for him? Is that good for Oklahoma? It just seemed like it was more trouble maybe than it was going to be worth. And so Oklahoma, and again, Kendall Daniels is a good kid. This is not he's a problem. There's none of that. It's just I don't think it was a great fit, and everybody just kind of said, hey, let's do something different here. A&M wants him as a safety. I think that's kind of what he'd rather play. As a linebacker, he's got a lot of talent, but Oklahoma is going to, like I said, kind of going to go through some of those hurdles where they're trying to make sure everybody's on the same page, and at the same time, assuming he can put on 40-plus pounds. I mean, that's a lot to just guess at. So I think it was just kind of a confluence of events, and Oklahoma just said, you know what, we're going to focus on guys like Prince Colley. They've made a new offer recently in the Georgia area. So, I mean, they've done some things to kind of move in a different direction, but I don't think there's any hard feelings, really. I think Oklahoma just kind of wanted to let his coaches know, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. We think it's best for everybody.
And we kind of hit on this last week too, Josh, like with the Caleb Johnson commitment. It's like this is a staff that knows what they're looking for. And if they can get it and secure it, I mean, Caleb Johnson's 6 feet tall and runs what, a 10.500 or 10.3 100 or something like that. I mean, if they find speed and they find size, they don't care how many stars are next to your name. They want to secure that type of player in their program, and they'll move on from maybe a higher recruited guy that they just don't know if it's going to work out with.
They know what they want. You're out. I have rarely been around a coaching staff that is more just laser focused on this is what we're looking for. These are the kind of guys we need, and we don't really care what other people think of him, what their evaluations are. We don't care if he's got 30 offers. We don't care if
and we're talking about on the defensive side mainly.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, offensively,
they can pick and choose. Yeah.
Well, because the guys that Lincoln Riley goes and offers, whether they're highly ranked at the time or not, they're going to become highly ranked because Oklahoma has that reputation on offense. Now, on defense, you look at some of the guys they offered early last year. Dante Manning being one of the prize examples. Nobody was talking about Dante Manning when Roy Manning made that offer. By the time it was all over, he was one of the top 5 corners in the country. Yeah. I mean, like they've shown an ability to find talent before other people do, and I think that's what they have to do is they try to rebuild this program.
Their evaluations have been on point.
Yeah, they really have shown a good eye for it. So yeah, they are going to lose no sleep if the local hometown school doesn't like them. Probably the best example I have from last year, and that's guys that I can kind of talk about a little bit more in depth. Noah Arinze That's a guy that Alex Grinch liked from day one.
Or how about the Watts kid from Little Elm or whatever? I mean,
oh yeah, Ryan Watts. I mean, but when OU really got serious with Lorenzo, started bringing him to campus, I think his best offer at that time was Division II. Like, he didn't have anybody big. Nebraska, when our Nebraska side heard that Oklahoma had offered him, they messaged me and were like, "Is this like for real?" Nebraska is not interested at all, really, in him. And whatever you want to say about where OU is defensively, they can recruit with Nebraska. And Nebraska was just like, nope. And then you watched him as a senior, and he had, I think, 15, 16 sacks last year, really started to put on some weight and starting to look like a guy. So we'll see if that pays off in the college game, but they've shown an ability to find talent early on.
I really feel like if there is a unofficial 40 drinking game, anytime any of us shits on Nebraska, everybody has to drink. I mean, that's got to be one of the rules. It's like one of our favorite pastimes is shitting on Nebraska.
I think we should send out a corn cob for each time, and then we just collect the corn cobs for each one. Like a little medal.
Is there a corn cob emoji?
I'm sure that there has to be. I'm sure that there has
maybe I've got the prize for the first fan that passes out from doing it. Carrie will send you an honorary Rex Burkhead bobblehead.
Oh my God! I mean, I will say this. I got into it last week about the summit thing with people. Nothing compared to shitting on Rex Burkhead after the Patriots win a Super Bowl.
I mean,
so did you get that strictly from Nebraska fans or did Patriots fans?
Oh, no, it was all Nebraska fans because.
Okay.
I mean, Josh,
I think it was
they
just
haven't
a bunch
had
of Plano High School alums that were getting after you.
They have not had anything to root for in a very long time, and I just shit on what they did have. I mean,
Judge, as far as the Kendall Daniels stuff goes, do you think that, like, behind closed doors, it pisses OU off, though, that, I mean, from the outside looking in, you're going to see Kendall Daniels, he's going to probably end up going to A&M, and it's going to be the third straight year that Oklahoma strikes out with a top-rated defensive back from the state of Oklahoma. Does that matter any to Oklahoma coaches?
I think do I think that it's going to like bother them? No. Are they aware that that's going to be a perception issue? And then now OU's gone several years where you can debate whether they've landed the number one player in the state for a while, dating back to Josh Proctor, Dax Hill, you go through the years here. So that's a continuing issue. So I don't think they are going to care as far as like, this really affects us, but they know that in-state things aren't always the way they'd want them to be. I mean, I think the biggest part of this is that a player like Kendall Daniels, who hasn't visited A&M and has been to Oklahoma multiple times, grew up in the state, and they had to fight till August for him. Like, I mean, that just seems like if Clemson was still a dog in the fight, okay, like you can kind of get there, or LSU, that's fine. Like you can kind of make sense of that. But Texas A&M, we have to fight Texas A&M in our own state, like. That would be I can understand how that would wear on you a little bit.
So, Josh, sort of moving forward, does Prince become the first name to watch? And what did you think about the offer to Trevin Wallace?
Yeah, Prince Colley, there is no question. I would tell you that Kendall Daniels, that guy is on a very short list for them. They like Prince Colley a lot from everything I've gathered. So, he is absolutely going to be that kind of guy, super athletic, real long. From everybody I've talked to, has been very receptive to Oklahoma, really kind of a kid with a great backstory, just a very, kind of just humble guy. So there's a lot about him that appeals to Oklahoma. But as far as Trevin Wallace, the linebacker offer from Jessup, Georgia, Wayne County High School, it's a guy that's committed to Boston College. Obviously, that's a race that you think Oklahoma can get involved with and can win. Now, he has an interesting connection to Oklahoma in that his uncle is J.R. Bryant, former Oklahoma linebacker. So, yeah, we got in the conversation because years and years ago, I went to J.R. Bryant's announcement at was that
Garden City?
Garden City, and that was.
You said that's a lovely place, right?
It is not fun. No,
it's aromatic. It is very
a lot of beef, a lot of manure out there in western Kansas.
You're within 10 miles because all you smell is cow shit. I mean, let's just be real honest about that.
50 miles maybe. It's just nothing but manure.
Yeah, because I was young in those days. I'd roll with my windows down places. I was like, nope, not doing it here. So we're going windows up. But no, it's kind of back to the kid himself. I talked with him a little bit. Really kind of an interesting guy. You can understand why Oklahoma likes him. He's done some track stuff, run some good 200 meters, is a long jumper in high school, and is, just a guy that is an overall good athlete that I think has kind of slid under the radar a little bit because he had an injury as a junior. I believe it was an ankle, and just kind of didn't ever really hit his stride his junior year. So I think a lot of people kind of overlooked him. I think from what I have gathered, if Auburn doesn't land Shmael Munden, the big-time linebacker from Georgia, Trevin Wallace is almost certainly going to be their next offer. So this is not a guy that you look at his offer list and it's, Boston College, Illinois, North Carolina State, and you think, oh, well, no big deal. No, I think this guy's a really good player. He just kind of has flown under the radar because there's several other really elite linebackers in the Georgia area, like there are every year. So, like I said, I like where OU is with him. I need to catch up with him a little bit more, kind of do a full story for everybody. But he's absolutely a guy that Oklahoma likes and, from my understanding, would take. The other, I do want to throw out Terrence Cooks, announced his top 6 yesterday. Had a chance to talk with a few people. I think he's still a take for Oklahoma. I don't think it's really going to matter because everybody I talk to tells me Texas, and I think that's probably what it is. But he's a guy Oklahoma likes. I mean, he's athletic. He's from Houston. I mean, it's a good area for them to land players from. Shadow Creek's tremendously talented, so if you can keep that connection going, that's all the better. So, like I said, there are options at linebacker. Oklahoma's just going to have to kind of figure out some other things because I'm not sure which of these guys I would say they lead for right at this moment.
I was going to let you continue, Bob. You seem
all
to be...
right. I got only like one more, really. I think as much as we all assume and think that Kendall Daniels won't join the class Saturday, does feel like someone is. And, another person, maybe a year or two ago, you're not thinking a cornerback in Virginia is ever coming to OU, but it looks like Damond Harmon's about to be the next member of Link Up 21.
Yeah, he's a guy, and, I haven't really had a chance to review it, but I know talking to some people, he's sure impressed at some camps over the weekend. So he's an intriguing guy, and we had the whole thing right before I left with Prophet Brown and all that was going on there. And, I mean, this is a guy Oklahoma likes. I mean, they've made a choice for him over several other players, frankly, including Prophet Brown. So this is a guy, whether his ranking is as high or not, just like we talked about, this is a guy Oklahoma has identified they like. Obviously, being a teammate and close friend of Kelvin Gilliam, they like, that's even better that you get to land another or try to land another elite player. So Oklahoma, this is a guy that I think what they like most about him, and it's something I talk about all the time on the pod with the offensive line, Damond Harmon gives them versatility. Because if they want to put him at corner, if that's the way the numbers work out best, okay, they're okay with that. He'll probably play some nickel. They'll do some things with him, kind of play a boundary corner. But if they, say they're going to get Isaiah Johnson or Kyrie Jackson or one of these other corners they're really high on, well, then you can kind of slide Damond Harmon to safety, and you still have the room to make those numbers work. So, again, Oklahoma – in the secondary is building depth or building some versatility. And again, a guy like Harmon, I think they could see him in a multitude of positions. He could play either safety. He could play nickel. He could probably play the boundary corner if that's what they need. And that's kind of what they see him as, a big physical guy that's going to press, come up and play run, do some of those things. So there is a lot to like here, but you've got to kind of see it through the spectrum of it's not quite clear what he's going to be, but they do like him to fill a role.
I have a question that I haven't heard anybody bring up. I mean, I've heard people bring up, Caleb Williams and the fact that Gonzaga doesn't have mid-semester transfers. You think there's any chance at all that Caleb Williams could transfer?
I have wondered the same thing, Kerry, because, I mean, if he's not planning to play football in the spring for Gonzaga, which, I mean, maybe he is, but I just common sense tells me he's probably not, then what is the advantage at staying at Gonzaga when you're going to have to ride out the whole year, when you could go to some other school, go through your semester, fill out whatever your requirements are, and then head on to Oklahoma at semester, where, you can get in earlier, start working, go through everything you need to go through. It makes a lot of sense to me, but I haven't heard any buzz. I have not heard any buzz that that's happening.
And you would think that it would have to be, initially you would think it'd be someone like an IMG, but what's to say that I just know. I mean, as much as these kids are active and 7-on-7 and just doing stuff, I mean, he's been going to quarterback academies and stuff like that. Like, I got to think he's sitting around saying, what am I going to do not playing football this year? Like, how am I getting better? Like, I would think that someone like him would get restless and start looking at stuff like that.
Agreed. I mean, like, I get, because a lot of people are like, oh, he could finish high school with his buddies and blah, 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 and go through all that. I mean, that's great.
He's a football player, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the way he looks at the world. Like, I mean, he's like, I can still be friends with those guys and accomplish the things I want to accomplish.
But you think that would be something that's cracked down? The kids that want to transfer just to play, are they going to be eligible to do that? Like, I know the OSSAA would. I mean, that'd be one heck of a fight to try to say that's a hardship or whatever. I don't know how other states do it.
UIL's pretty strict on that stuff in Texas.
Yeah. So,
Bob, I saw yesterday at a Millwood school board meeting, it was brought up.
Oh, yeah, I saw this too.
If your sport isn't offered at your school this season, you will have open transfer in the state of Oklahoma.
Because Millwood, they're not playing any middle school sports, and football is the only varsity sports is all they're playing. I guess something besides football, but a lot of sports, you can't even play it if you're at Millwood because they're doing all online classes and everything.
Yeah, Oklahoma City Public. So what we're saying is get ready for Caleb Williams to transfer to Heritage Hall. Maybe he could get the same treatment as LeBron did.
Obviously, it didn't work.
No.
LeBron was never coming to Heritage. His kids were never coming to Heritage Hall.
You can't say that.
I just did. Although you want to fight me on an 8-page thread on the board, that's your priority.
Yeah, I'll start one this afternoon.
Okay, so if we want to move on from recruiting, obviously last night Board of Regents met and put together. It is a very odd time because you're dealing with a season that we don't know if it's going to be played. We think it's going to be played. If it is played, now that the Miami Marlins are a thing, we don't know what it's going to look like, how many interruptions there might be, if it will be, cut off short, how it's going to work. So paying football coaches the salaries that they make is a difficult proposition. Lincoln Riley's already taken the pay cut this year. But if you're a university, you've been planning things before the pandemic. You've got to expect that things are going to return to normal at some time. And they went out and had their, Board of Regents meetings where they handled football coaches like they do every year. And for at least a night, it was like the world is still normal because they handed out raises that are pretty much in line with what they do every year, except for Alex Grinch, who I think you can say, outside of Lincoln Riley, probably the most impressive statement by the university backing an assistant coach that we've ever seen.
No doubt about it. I mean, you get into where he's at now with the $400,000 raise, $1.8 million. That's big dick money is what that is. If you're paying a coordinator that kind of money, you start thinking that you need to get the results that you're paying for, right? And honestly, I thought the biggest thing with the Grinch extension was the $200,000 stay bonus. I mean, that is money you're saying that we know people are going to be coming after you, but we're going to give you a little bit of incentive to stick around, right?
What did Lincoln go to, like,
sure.
1.3 right before he became the head coach? Was that his final? Or that was going to maybe be his salary that last year?
Yeah, it was 1.2 or 1.3, something like that.
Oh, you're talking about what he was going
when
to
he
make
was still
in
the OC.
Yeah,
because he went. I put it up on the board yesterday, but 2014 he makes $275,000. 2015 he goes up to $500,000. 2016 he's up to $900,000, and then all of a sudden in 2017 he's up to $3.1 million, being the head coach.
Yeah, but I think he was scheduled to make over $1 million as the coordinator.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But
1.8,
like yesterday too, is the commitment to the rest defensive staff, and that's sort of
multi-year
what
contracts. Yeah.
You look at Roy Manning and Brian Odom and Calvin Thibodeau. No one's making under $435,000 now with defensive staff, and that's not, because of the fact that they've been there a while, and it's just kind of like, well, you're here, we'll give you a raise. It's because they earned it, and that's what's great to see. There were a couple times the last 2-3 years, those raises just felt like, well, you're still here, and we won the Big 12, so here's another $5,000 or so. But that it seems like they're very, very much committed to this being the staff that can actually get the job done.
Yeah, and I mean, Bill Bedenbaugh, the raise isn't there, but I mean, just the overall salary, I mean, says a lot, which his market has demanded that he be paid what he's being paid. And really, there are people, isn't Herb Hand making like $800,000 at Texas or something? I mean, it's not getting. Offensive line coaches are becoming a market that is harder and harder to keep. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Bill Bedenbaugh gets up to, has a. If this team continues to do what it's been doing, like, he could start kind of encroaching on that $1 million a year mode as an assistant.
And as well he should.
And they've had to pay him what they pay him now because he's had suitors. I mean, I know, NFL teams have called on him. There have been some big programs that have come after him, and he stayed at Oklahoma and steadily gotten raises because of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Josh. I'll come in after you.
No, I was just going to say that now that you've got Sam Pittman at Arkansas, I don't think there's any O-line coach anywhere that's really even close to his profile right now.
It almost seems like, is it too easy to look at what they did? And I know there was a little bit made of it on Twitter yesterday as far as the 2-year extensions for the coaches. It seems like I don't know. I looked at it yesterday and I thought, man, they're really trying to keep this group together for a while, for maybe the next couple years at least. Is it just almost too homerish to say that?
No, I mean, I think, Brian Odom definitely, had a really nice raise of $60,000 other than Shane Beamer. It was, I'm leaving Alex Grinch out, but Calvin Thibodeau, Brian Odom both got $60,000 raises. Shane Beamer got $70,000. I think Shane Beamer's just in such a great position. Not only is he a talented young coach, but the bloodlines there just raise his profile so much. Like, and what was it, Old Dominion that came after him during the offseason?
Old Dominion or James Madison? I can't remember which one it was.
Or at least he was a candidate there. So, I mean, you start to hear his name more and more. But, I mean, yeah, his family name is gold. I mean, it is like there's going to be somebody that wants to take a flyer on him. So I don't know how long you'll keep Shane Beamer on staff.
He's a little bit like, and I guess probably not in the same step as an Alex Grinch, but I think he's at a point right now in his career where he's not going to leave for a school that you go, oh, I wonder why he's going there. He's going to leave for a school that, more or less is going to be a major Division I program, I would think. There's no doubt he's going to be a head coach.
An OC at a major program, I think, would do it.
That the next, I guess, natural next step for him would be OC at a major program?
Yes.
I could see that.
Unless he just feels
Justin,
like...
If Fuente keeps shitting all over himself in Blacksburg, I wouldn't think for a second that, that he would have to be somebody that, could, I guess, get the fan base going again.
I mean, the thing about Shane Beamer is he's the one guy that you look at on this list, I think, of coaches at OU, this list, the coaching roster at OU, like he's the one guy you could see someone taking a flyer and hiring him as a head coach even without coordinator experience.
No doubt.
Oh, I think there's a decent chance he's the next head coach on this staff.
Not at OU, but
yeah. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Just to get a head coaching job.
I knew what you were saying.
Somewhere.
I just didn't want people freaking out if they.
Yeah. Did we not break that news already? Oh, breaking news. Lincoln Riley.
Shane Beamer, coach in waiting.
I'll put it on the board.
No, but I mean, yeah, it is the extending everyone like they did. I think that's partly. That's a really good move, especially in these times that we're in, for them to show not only financially are we going to commit to the future when things get back to normal, but we want you to know basically you're going to be around an extra year. Everybody basically got an extra year, just to know you've got a contract here. You're going to get paid here somehow. So there we go. No more to add. Coaches' salaries. It's not exactly the sexiest.
No, I guess the one thing to add is that this was done before the pandemic.
Yeah, in
February. A lot of people are definitely assuming, well, what the heck? Why are they doing this now? But and even with Lincoln Riley, I think it was kind of interesting to learn. It took a whole 2 months to get that all figured out. It wasn't like it just took one weekend and then boom, they were done. They started in December till February until they ironed it all out, which kind of shows you that there's probably a lot that goes into this. And as much as Riley loves being with the Sooners, it wasn't like he was just going to say, yeah, sure, I'll definitely stay. They had to pony up the money and really make this work for him.
It definitely seemed like, though, with the just with the Lincoln stuff, and things can change overnight, obviously, with contracts, but I don't think maybe those rumors about Riley in the NFL, they'll certainly won't lessen because of this, but maybe they become more quieter. Like I think that his commitment to Oklahoma right now is probably, in a way, I guess, as strong as it's ever been. Like Lincoln Riley, and we've said it before on the podcast, as far as Lincoln Riley loves the game of college football. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I don't know. I think it echoes even louder now that he's going to be in Norman for quite a while.
It's hard to have a hot seat conversation about coaches right now. It's kind of the one little, talking point that it's just not like, who can you say until there's going to be a season and what that season's going to look like, and if a coach has a team that the virus runs rampant and they have to sit out for a month or something, like, how are you going to put that on a coach? Like, it's hard to sit there and predict exactly whether Lincoln Riley's going to become a hot name. I mean, anytime an NFL job comes open, he's going to be mentioned, as long as his offenses are doing what they're doing. And you would expect with Spencer Rattler,
fan, right?
Yeah, no, you do. But I also think you're right in that Lincoln Riley right now, in his mind, I believe, feels like he is a college coach. And I think he feels like there's not another job that's any better than what he has right now as a college coach. So, but do I think Lincoln Riley will end up being at Oklahoma for 18 years like Bob Stoops? No. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see a coach stick around at a school for 18 years again.
Nor do I think should they.
I don't either.
I think if there's anything that you learn from the way that Bob exited, like 18 years, 19 years at one school, things become stale, even if they aren't quote unquote stale. I just new energy inside of a college program is the best thing that you can have. And I think Oklahoma State, to a certain extent, is seeing that right now.
Oh, I feel bad for people at Iowa. I mean, Kirk Ferentz, for one, is not exciting to begin with, but I mean, how do you generate any buzz around that program. It's just the same thing year after year after year. I mean, Ohio State, they change all the time. Florida, they change all the time. I mean, Notre Dame, God, how long has Brian Kelly been at Notre Dame? Like 12, 13 years? It's been a while now.
Let's see. Other than Ferentz, what, Saban and I mean, they've got to be on the short
list.
Saban
is way up there now, yeah.
Kelly. See, because Kelly was
in 2009 at Notre Dame, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, because he was the head coach at Cincinnati when OU played, when they played.
Oh, that's right. Yep. When Bradford was here, yeah. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, 10 years is a long time.
Sure. I thought the thing that blew my mind yesterday was what Kersey tweeted about when this contract runs out for Lincoln Riley. He'll have been at Oklahoma for 11 years. He'll be 43 years old. That's just insane to me.
What's more insane, that he will have been here 11 years or that he'll only be 43 at that point in time?
Both.
I'd say the 43 thing is the most shocking.
That's wild.
It's kind of like the John Blake stuff that came up last week as far as I completely, and I guess I just didn't realize it because I was so young at the time. He was 35 when he took over at OU.
I'm with you, Eddie. I couldn't believe he was 59. My brain just couldn't process that.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about his age when he was hired. Everybody was so consumed about the fact he'd never been a coordinator. They didn't really talk about his age that much.
That was such a pick your side argument. I mean, I was young. Like I was like 13 or 14 when that happened, but I can remember listening to talk radio and like it was either he's never been a coordinator or Barry Switzer said he could be the head coach. Like, you know, like it
oh, I mean, there's no doubt Barry Switzer got him that job. I mean, Barry Switzer backing him is the reason he would never have gotten the job if not for Barry Switzer.
Absolutely. It was just interesting to watch how people kind of chose their side.
Well, I don't know if you guys did this, but, man, if you ever go back, if you just type in search Barry Trammell, John Blake, Taco Bell, literally one of the most scathing columns that I've ever seen anyone write on another human being. Basically saying that John Blake, I mean, this was the prevailing attitude then. I mean, it never left him that he wasn't a coordinator, that he wasn't ready for the job, and it didn't help him that he would play 5 quarterbacks in a game, sometimes before halftime, it seemed like. He was so wishy-washy offensively, changing from the wishbone to this, to that. He was all over the place. And his experience never stopped being an issue. And so Trammell wrote this article basically saying John Blake was basically not even Taco Bell would make a guy a manager just because he could roll a good burrito.
Oh my, I'm reading it now. Good Lord.
I mean, is it not one of the most scathing things that you've ever read?
Yes, like he called the hiring of John Blake the Taco Bell plan.
Yeah, the Taco Bell plan. I mean, it was unbelievable. I really think that article is what ended up getting him fired.
He's going to get scrubbed from the internet by the end of the day. Tram's going to get canceled.
It's a very harsh article. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I think everybody said it last week, and it's very sad to see the guy pass away. And the relationships that he had with the players is very evident. But he was the worst coach in the history of Oklahoma football. You can't get around that.
It's really interesting. Like Gary, I can hear Josh laughing. Just read something else horrible.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Go ahead and say what you read. That just shocked you.
Just three or four sentences here. This is what you get with a manager trainee. Texas A&M 51, Oklahoma 7. A train wreck of a football program. You get a running clock in the second half. Seconds ticked away after kickoff returns, bringing this baby to a quicker end. You get OU's total yards overtaking its penalty yards with 6:21 left in the third quarter.
The Radosevich family was at that game.
Oh, I was too.
I can tell you that
miserable.
I believe it was snowing that morning.
It was miserable.
And if you look through the archives on the Daily Oklahoman, I'm pretty sure the Radosevich family had a picture in the paper.
I can't remember. I think it was Corey Callens that had to get taken off on a stretcher in that game.
It was like sleeting the entire game, right?
Yeah, it was awful. And they got their asses kicked.
Can you imagine Texas A&M walking into Norman in 2020 and beating them 51-7? I mean, we would have to literally set the board on fire.
It would not be good. No. But I mean, it was just, yeah, I mean, John Blake, I think he was a good man. He did a great job recruiting. There's no doubt talent was, the cupboard was not bare when Bob Stoops got here. I always just defended Bob Stoops because, yes, he got talent here, but Bob Stoops actually found an offense and stuck to it and put up a lot of points and had some direction. Basically John Blake showed you how bad it could go, and Bob Stoops showed you how well it could go back to back.
Well, I thought even players that defended him, like Trent Smith said something like, it bothers me to read some of the things that I read about, like it's okay to say he was a terrible coach or a head coach. Yeah. At the same time, be like, but he was, a good man, that kind of thing. So even people that were defending him were very clear that he was doing an awful job. Like it was going as bad as it could go.
Yeah, it's just a shame. I mean, to die 59 years old.
Yeah, and I talked to somebody that was coaching with him down at Princeton High School, said the kids loved him, obviously. I mean, he was kind of a big part of that community down there, it sounds like.
Well, I think with John, he could have gone back into a very successful defensive line coaching career, but I think losing that job really, kind of like a lot of people, it took something out of him that it took him a while to be able to kind of be back around football. And he went to North Carolina and was a coach there for a while.
He was in Nebraska. He was involved in the Reggie Smith recruitment. Almost got Reggie to Nebraska.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I forgot about that, Josh.
It was that's my last vivid memory of John Blake. Is there was a meeting at Reggie's house like a week before signing day, and it got really contentious from everything I'd heard.
Really?
And Blake was there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like basically it sounded as though Blake had made some accusations about Oklahoma and their coaching staff and the makeup of it. And, Reggie's parents weren't really, I guess I don't know if they were in position to or had interest in kind of asking some tough questions about the things he was saying. And from what I understand, some Edmond Santa Fe staff came in on that last meeting and was like, and they asked him some questions that he couldn't really answer, and apparently it ended kind of badly.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's been a while, but that is pretty much my memory of that whole evening.
I don't remember even talking about that. It's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe that was something that we talked a lot about back then, but that's interesting. So anyway, as far as football goes, on the field stuff, everything is cleared now with the August 29th start. We don't know all the specifics on fans, TV, times, all of that stuff. I mean, it does look like the NCAA, everybody I know was hopeful, like, oh, well, if that's one of the only games, then maybe it won't be on pay-per-view. But now it sounds like everybody's going to try and move up their games to August 29th too. So it might not be so week zero-ish, it doesn't look like, after this is all said and done.
It is truly amazing to me, guys, that we are 31 days out from what is supposed to be Oklahoma season opener. And if I had a gun to my head, I'd just say, shoot me. I don't know if they'll be playing on August 29th.
I think they'll play August 29th. I don't know if they'll be playing September 29th or October 29th.
Fair enough.
That's where the real questions start to come in for me. I think they can get a feel of what they're doing throughout preseason camp to feel confident, but then once the season gets going, all variables start changing, and there's no way they can control it.
The good news is, I mean, you see Oklahoma's results. I think who was it yesterday? Michigan, maybe. It was Maryland, Baylor. They've all come out. Kansas even came out. No active COVID positive tests within the program right now. But man, when these kids get back to campus, I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't have any idea how it's going to be done. And I think everybody kind of knows my feeling on if they should be in school or not. But I don't know if we're going to freak out every time that a positive test comes up. It can't happen. It's not going to be.
Right. No, I think the Marlins is a pretty good example of, how there was a lot of
kicked out of the league.
There was a lot of panic when it first happened. And a lot of the doomsdayers came out immediately and were like, season's over. But you take a day, you take a couple of days, and you realize, okay, well, this is an isolated incident, and something went drastically wrong. And I think everybody's going to learn something from that, and it's going to help people move forward in sports. Here's what we don't know, though. Like Oklahoma, you mentioned Texas, Baylor, 0 positives coming out just this last week. And it will happen every once in a while as long as you can identify it, separate that person, quarantine them. But everyone, I know that baseball is not in a bubble. And college football, NFL, they're not going to be in bubbles. But it is so important for the players to adhere to, like, quarantine protocols. Because it sounds like what the Marlins did was just not give a shit.
Yeah, they should. I'm serious. They should be, if not kicked out of the league, they should be forced to forfeit the games that they're not being allowed to play right now.
Like, it sounds like they just had a culture of, well, this isn't real kind of thing. Like Michael Porter Jr. By the way, he's apparently crazy. And so, like, you just have to take it very seriously, because it is amazing to me that the Miami Marlins, it's basically spread to their entire team, yet they played a team and no one from the other team got it. Now, I know football is different, and if one person has it, let's say a center has it, everybody's in trouble. But we don't know how it's going to go, how easily it's going to be transmitted on a football field. I think NFL is going to tell us a lot because they're going to be out at practices. But it's almost like, and maybe we've talked about this before, but it's almost like, do you just kind of not even, would it almost be better not to even be in full pads, not to ever tackle anybody until game day, just for this year?
They ain't been working on tackling down there in years, Kerry.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If only from a for the way it looks, it'd be good for the optics of it. I don't think these guys are going to be hanging around each other. They're going to be talking with each other. Like, the idea that it's because they hit each other is going to be. But I understand that it looks better.
Well, it'll be curious to see what Bob Bowlesby says Monday, because he's sort of kind of become the ringleader of, we understand we can't stop this, but it's about trying to limit as much as possible. And hearing what he's going to say is okay, like, that's okay, but this crosses the line. This is too much. This is when we have to halt things. So I'm kind of curious to see his line of thinking when he addresses us Monday morning.
Yeah, and I think the Big 12 Media Days, talking to Lincoln, I think all the valuable stuff will be how he views, practice procedures. Because I think the thing that we've learned about this, like with the NBA, even though they're in the bubble, like, they wear masks when they do Zoom interviews. And you think to yourself, well, that just seems stupid. But I think the more stuff you do that seems stupid is better. It's like, just going out of your way to be overly cautious is not a bad thing in terms of sports and being able to play sports.
Yeah, I personally think it's kind of stupid, but I also concede to the fact that I want to be able to watch sports, and without them taking those proper steps and protocols, which we have seen in the bubble now with the MLS reporting 0 confirmed cases, NBA the second consecutive week of no cases. It's almost like all of these protocols and guidelines are working. So you just kind of have to bite the bullet and suck it up and get over it if we want to be able to watch sports.
But the problem is they're both in bubbles, and you can't say the same for the NFL and college football and baseball.
Absolutely. And particularly with a college campus, when you're talking about there's only, and Riley has said this multiple times, there's only so much you can do when you're in control of those guys. There has to be some type of what you just said, Carrie, a personal responsibility.
Okay, Stitter.
To know if you go out and you do something, you're literally putting everything in jeopardy.
You have to find some sort of bubble. It may not be a bubble like what the NBA is doing, but you have to find a way to put as much of a bubble around your programs, NFL, college, as you possibly can.
Does it feel weird to ask football-related questions yet? I'm still not at that point. It's still
if someone asked Lincoln Riley about his 3 deep,
someone's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
weird
why,
last Friday.
Well, if someone asked him about that before they ask him if Jalen Redmond can play because he might be an at-risk person, like that it's finally time to ask him about stuff like that.
And I told you guys last night, I think that is a very big question mark right now. Not so much as that I don't know if he's going to play. I just, you've seen a couple players here and there, obviously at the NFL level, but
the Vikings just had a guy that they signed to be their starting nose tackle that opted out, and he signed a 3-year, $27 million contract, but he has asthma, and so he's opting out. Like, that's for asthma. Like what Jalen Redmond has gone through, that's seriously scary. Well, I never said that.
I thought you said that one time.
No, I've never said
that. My Bears took the hit with Eddie Goldman yesterday too. Yep. It sucks.
Did you shame him publicly, Bob? Did you give him Isaiah Thomas treatment?
Shame. No.
You should have put on some sunglasses, some wraparounds, taken a new Avi, and then went and called him a pussy.
It's almost like
maybe you could have got.
Now when I see that stuff, I just laugh.
You could have put Pearl in the picture with you. That would have been on brand.
It's like some of these NFL players are rooting against the NFL season.
I'm sorry, but I don't agree with the people that are saying that there are no media people like rooting for things to be canceled, because I don't know if rooting is the right word, but we've talked about this plenty. There are some people that just have no goddamn common sense when it comes to that stuff.
No, but I think that there is a certain sense of, and I do it myself. Like if I see news that I don't want to, allow myself to think is a possibility, I shit on it, and that's a coping mechanism of mine.
Well, and we all know how that works. I mean, a lot of times people just want to hear us say what they want to hear. And they don't want to hear you say tough things. But at the same time, I'm sorry, Dan Wolken is actively rooting for the season to get shut down every season.
In a sense, I think he should be banned from every press box in the Big 12. But that's just me. But then again, he'd have to attend a game in the Big 12 to even be banned from the press box. So
I think the last time I saw him in person was at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, he just kept walking around with a tennis racket asking where Serena was. It was weird. Bob, we need to get you a tennis racket in your hand again, get you back playing, and maybe we can get a little showdown.
All right.
I love it.
Let's do it.
I love it.
We can put it on Scoop HD. That's what we'll do if the football season's canceled.
Bob, you know tennis better than he does. How badly would Serena beat him? Like, would she literally just beat him over the head with the racket when she was done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would be a beatdown. And that's even if you didn't let her serve her usual first serve. It would still be a beatdown.
It's just, like, I think about, like, because, I mean, tennis I don't know, but, like, swimming I know. I think of, like, the great, like, female swimmers. I'm like, dude, they would lap you. Like, it's not even a contest. You don't understand how good they are at something.
I feel like before we get out of here today, I hate to do this, but we have to put out an official Sooner Scoop statement on one of our employees.
Oh, no.
We do not condone in any way, shape, or form Eddie's recent video of him.
The thirst trap.
His thirst trap, getting out of the pool. We do not condone. I mean, of all the things I've seen you do over the years, Eddie, Horns Up for Peace, conducting a religious service.
It was a funeral.
In the West press box. Or the West club seats. Things that made me cringe. Now Horns for Peace didn't really make me cringe. Maybe you with a Sam Ellinger blown up tweet walking across campus made me cringe a little bit.
Oh, I was the OG protester before protesting even became the flavor of the week.
Oh, they've been protesting even since Josh and I were in school, trust me. Nonstop. But no, it was literally the most shocking thing I've ever seen you do. And that's saying a lot. The hair is disgusting.
Amazing. I was way for it, Eddie. Nice.
I might get it cut. I don't know. We'll see.
I will say, let me ask you a question. Did you preview anything but the Instagram version?
What do you mean?
The Twitter version was a little too revealing.
Oh,
there was.
No, I mean, it looked better on Instagram with music, but
well, it just cut certain things out that I didn't want to see.
Well, I don't wear Twitter a bra in the pool, Carrie.
you needed a bikini top.
Right there.
You needed a bikini top. Not to say that I wouldn't either, but you didn't have to be bent over like that. I mean, it was it's disturbing.
So Eddie,
disturbing.
To the heart of it, though, how many nudes resulted in this? I mean, I know you got some pics in the
from
DMs.
Guys.
I will tell you, it's a number in between 0 and 0. So you do the math.
I think the only meme response to your tweet was the Chris Farley raising up his glasses with the gay Schlitz SNL skit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So
well, yeah, that or Phoebe Cates. That was the other one that kept popping up.
I think your boobs are bigger than Phoebe Cates.
I don't know who that is.
God.
Oh, boy.
Of course you
well,
know.
to be fair, Phoebe Cates dropped out of acting to be a wife to, what's his name? Kevin, why can't I remember his name?
Bannister?
He was president. He was Dave.
Oh.
Kevin Kline.
She married Kevin Kline?
Oh, yeah. They've been married for a long time.
Jesus. He's a lot older than she is.
Yeah,
Well
she's
done,
quite
Kevin
a bit
Kline.
older. Yeah.
Good for him.
Good for him. She still looks fantastic, too.
Mm-hmm.
We won't be saying the same about Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie's not going to age well. But that's no judgment, Eddie. I won't either. So it's
Did
fine.
you ever get a response from Mike Gundy?
No, I'm just waiting until he blocks me. I think that's probably going to be coming at some point.
Well, I know I've had a lot more wings this week than usual, thanks to Lou Williams.
It really kind of angers me and saddens me that we've been to Atlanta, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 years, and that has never come up on the dinner plans. And I will make an oath right now. Next time I'm in Atlanta, I'm going to get those wings.
You'd think like Woody or somebody would have told us about that.
I know.
They do look pretty good, though.
They look awesome. That picture that the Athletic ran yesterday, I think it was Andrew Kishner or somebody that went and spent some time over there. I'm sold. Only unfortunate thing is I think that everybody else in the country will be. I bet that place will be booming for a couple weeks.
I'm sure they don't have dancers, right? They really do just serve food and that's it.
I think right now yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I peruse their menu. It looks like a pretty impressive place. So, all right, guys, any other order of business you want to get out there before we head out for this week?
No.
Nothing that comes to mind. I'm sure that I'll think of something when we get done here, but it doesn't feel like it's July 29th. It doesn't feel like college football is right around the corner. I feel pretty positive, though, that we're going to try and make this thing work. I just hope it all works out well.
Real quick, Bob, anything from your talk with Lon Kruger late last week that stood out to you? I guess that's a no.
Pearl duty.
Bob went to Pearl duty.
I think more than anything, they're going to be relying on a bunch of guys that played a lot of minutes last year. Can Damond Harmon make that jump? Brady Manick, Austin Reeves, obviously. It's kind of weird just the way that the season ended. I mean, I fired the Oklahoma basketball staff at halftime at the TCU game, and lo and behold, they came back and scored. Austin Reeves had an unbelievable second half, and they were going to make the NCAA tournament for the 8th time in 10 years, which is hard to believe that Lon Kruger is entering his 10th year, Bob.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting, the ceiling of this team is going to change if Mo Gibson gets the transfer waiver. And that's why I asked that question, because OU anticipated that Mo, the transfer from North Texas, was going to be eligible for this upcoming season. And if he's there, the guard play is drastically different. And how good this team can be changes that quickly. And what Lon said is they're working on the transfer waivers for Elijah Harkless and Mo. The way I think we all follow John Rothstein. The way it just like transfer waivers are getting approved like crazy. They used to always get approved anyway, but now when you add in something like COVID, it seems like there's no way they're going to deny any of these. But until they get full clearance, this team will be a little bit just kind of wondering how good they can really be. But a lot of leadership, a lot of experience coming back, and that's good when you're having to deal with COVID and trying to get used to practicing with masks and things of that nature. And this is, can Brady Manick make the leap? He's been getting better at every little thing, it feels like, with each year, but now he's got to put it all together, not only on the court, but he's got to become the leader. And when Lon Kruger can joke that you're not the most talkative, then you're really not the most talkative. And that's where Manick's got to step up, just like Christian Doolittle learned to do during last season.
Well, and I think for me, and I think for most fans, as highly recruited as Damond Harmon was, if you don't see a massive leap forward for him this year, you got to start wondering if he's ever going to be a great basketball player.
Yeah,
I think he was better than I don't know. I think that he probably had a little bit better season than he gets credit for last year. It wasn't the takeover like I think a lot of people thought, but looking back on it, I think that his freshman season was probably what it is, a freshman season. I don't know. Is that wrong?
I just felt like it more than anything, it was surprising because he seemed a little overwhelmed at times. And not because all you heard about is how vocal he was during his recruiting, how outspoken he was, what a great attitude he had, and then it just seemed like a guy that wasn't sure of himself all season last year.
I think he got slapped in the face with a little bit of a humbling, if you will. I think that he maybe thought it was going to be a little bit easier than it actually was.
Yeah, and you sort of see it in some of his tweets where he's like, I used to think I just drive down the lane and then I got to pick and choose what I wanted to do. And he realized he's going to get his shot swatted a lot if he didn't really come in. But, he kind of made fun of himself. I actually appreciate it. I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, he quote tweeted something of some video of like doing a jump stop in the lane or something. He's like, you're going to learn that just gets swatted if you try to do it that way. So I give him self-awareness credit. He really understood, what he needed to try to change. And that's also what Lon says, that he did change his game during conference season to get better, but now he's got to be even better than that. That can't be his ceiling. You can't have a sophomore funk like Jamal Bieniemy went into, who of course isn't with the team now. But I mean, this is Harmon was someone that was touted as a top 50 guy, and he's got the potential to show it. But this is the year where it almost has to come together, or else you don't want to say he's a bust. But yeah, you start looking at over recruiting when you look at Bijan Cortez, Kingfisher, a Trey Alexander, Heritage Hall. That 2021 class, especially at the guard position, is something that could be really special for the Sooners if the guys on campus can't step it up in the meantime.
What do you make of the Trey Alexander situation, Bob?
Oh, it's interesting. It just seems like OU's learning from Bryce Thompson, where they just put all the eggs. That one basket is like, you know what, we're going all in. If we don't get Bryce, we're not talking to anybody else. We want him to know that he is our guy, the only guy. And it burned them. I mean, maybe they never really had a shot against Kansas. Maybe they did. But whatever it was, that was the method they took didn't work out. And now with Trey Alexander, the Rivals 100 shooting guard from Heritage Hall, they've reached that point where, okay, he hasn't jumped on board yet. We need to go elsewhere. Not forget about him, not just dump him, but we need to start recruiting some other kids. They made an offer last week to a kid out of Texas, CJ Nolan. They're talking to some other kids from California and other places like that. So they're not putting Trey on the back burner, but they cannot go through another 2020 where they load up for Bryce Thompson and then don't get it and have no fallback plan whatsoever. I think they still believe they can get Trey because the Team Griffin trio of Bijan, Damian Collins, the borderline 5-star power forward from Texas, and Alexander, that's been the dream for a long time now. I feel they're in a better spot with Collins and Trey, which kind of sometimes feels a little weird when Heritage Hall is only like 25 miles up the road. But if they can get Collins to make that jump, and then you got two of the three, then maybe they can help try to get Trey. They don't want to give up on Trey. They want that trio to happen, but they can't wait around forever trying to see if it's all going to go down.
All right, guys, good stuff. Coming up on Monday, we'll have Big 12 virtual media days, so we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, we're not too far away from getting in full football media grind as well. Whatever that's going to be, we still haven't heard exactly what our role as media is going to be at this point. Probably a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that. But we're going to be able to bring you a lot more OU football information, and eventually we'll be getting down to practice stuff and, guys that are playing, guys that are making impacts, guys that are getting better throughout the offseason. We know we've been able to see a little bit of a look in from Benny Wiley and his Instagram account. And, Brendan Walker, by the way, we didn't mention him, but just how good. I know you saw him in person, Josh, but for an incoming freshman, that's one of the better-looking guys I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it was night and day from the kid that I had seen, really developing through his high school career. He'd put in some real work with Tom Wharton. It showed.
And considering he had that knee injury late in his season, too. So, all right. A lot of great stuff to come. We're looking forward to kind of getting back into the swing of things, however that's going to be, and looking forward to bringing you guys even more coverage and more news coming out of OU camp when things really get going. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to Josh, to Eddie, to Bob, and we'll see you guys back here next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.